economic growth and meeting our climate goals, are they not compatible? Can you do both? And we believe absolutely you can. I spent a couple of weeks recently in Silicon Valley, the technological heart of the United States. And I have to tell you, there's nobody in Silicon Valley that doesn't think there's money to be made and economic growth opportunities in renewable energy, in energy efficiency programs, in smart grid technology, in battery technology. In fact, companies in Silicon Valley look to the East Coast where the policymakers are and think that we are far behind the times talking about big pipeline infrastructure. I mean, they are busy working at the technologies that are really going to drive growth. In the solar industry in the United States, last year we added jobs 10 times more quickly than in any other industry or than the industries as a whole. So I think the International Energy Agency estimates that between now and 2050, $25 trillion worth of investment will be put into power markets globally. That's a huge opportunity. And I think that integrating renewables, using new grid technologies, looking at battery technology, these are industries that really can drive growth and good competitive jobs. So, thanks.
Well, thank you very much also for presenting to us the involvement gas infrastructure, because usually on a very popular level we always associate corridor, South Stream, yes or no, Nord Stream, sort of the big things. At the same time, there is a field competition, and there are quite a lot of publication behind US, behind Japan, behind China now. We are not so competitive anymore into what we... Let's move to our final panelists. Eric's invested and been involved in a very wide variety of energy solutions, security and economic prosperity in our conversation so far.
It's always extremely interesting. 8 years ago, when I was made head, I'm still happy, but I realize in which mess I've landed. In the difficult, you're always trying to find a long-term solution on a moving problem because it's continuously moving. So it's very difficult to give final answers to everything. But I have to say I agree with many of the panelists before me, and above all with Robin. The future is technology. Moving parts that makes it more difficult of energy, and climate change is technology. So, and just a couple of examples, the United States, because they replaced coal with natural gas. Why was it possible? Because of new drilling techniques. Then you have continuously think about solar. Nowadays, on a same level, they compete very well with gas and other fuels for the production of electricity. So in the reality, technology is the big answer. I would agree with Robin that definitely the US is far more advanced than us. And I'm just not talking about the hardware, but the thinking. I was in the US as well in April in a big conference, and you see that there is already a way of thinking of what will happen to big utility companies one day, which is not that far, where generation will be distributed. So everybody, every house, every industry will generate electricity and send it to the grid. What's the usefulness of large companies? So you see, this is a kind of debate I've never seen in Europe so far. It will come, but in the US it's already like that. So technology is the answer. I'm also the head of oil and gas, not only power, and I always like the words of Sheikh Yamani many years ago, when asked about fossil fuels, will they last forever, blah, blah. And he said the very famous words, well, Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. Well, the same thing will happen here. We will not stop using fossil fuels because we don't find them anymore, but because we don't need them anymore, because we'll have other kind of thing. But we have to pay attention, because political support, but it's there until the energy is affordable. What you say, yes, I do want clean energy, I do want anything, okay, and knowing that 10% of the UK population is in a context of energy poverty, it's something which is very, very worrying. If we want consensus, we have to build something which is viable. If not, it's too difficult. Now, coming back to the other point of energy union, I have to say, being a practitioner, and I know very well what Vice President Šefčovič says when he says talk. It doesn't mean talk for the sake of talking. It means trying to hear everything in order to analyze it and to finalize what we really want. I have to say, I like the new architecture of the union about energy. There is a vice president in charge of the energy union, and there is a commissioner that put together climate change and energy. It's logic. Energy and climate change are two phases of the same issue. Why do you want to divide them? If you want to find a solution, they have to stay together. Then I have to say facts versus words. I'm a practitioner. I'm not. I do a lot of policy making, but I mean, at the end, I have to decide whether I support lending or investing in equity in energy companies. But I have to say, Vice President Šefčovič has been extremely factual more than talkative, I would say. I'm thinking about the winter package. I mean, the winter package has not been a mean fact. It has been a huge achievement, not enough, in my opinion, discussed within Europe. It has been very, very difficult. I cannot go into details, and I don't want to go into details, but a lot of work has been done. Putting together, I have to say, very worried international financial institutions, multilateral banks, to help Ukraine, and I have to say the United States was so involved as well, is not a mean fact either. I have to say, you have to understand that Ukraine is a country with a CC+ kind of rating, so you all know what it means. It's a country which has a huge legacy of misuse, misappropriation, corruption, and so on and so forth. It would be fanciful to throw money just, let's buy other gas. It doesn't work like that. So you have, at the same time, you have to provide the money in order to have the political consensus. Because can you imagine, I mean, 10 million people being in a condition where they don't have heating? It would be a political instability clause of incredible proportion. So you have on the one hand help, and on the other hand demand. Demand reforms, demand that processes are open, transparent, competition is enforced, and all the rest, which is not very, very easy. It's always a difficult work, and in particular case of Ukraine, it is something where the legacy is very, very, very in-depth, very profound. Finally, energy intensity, and I close the loop in this way. Many countries where the EBRD operate have a problem of energy intensity. They use too much intensity for producing one unit of GDP. This is a problem which is all over, but I have to say in some of the countries very, very big. Even in Slovakia, a country which I would acknowledge is very much advanced, but this year, we lent 150 million to Slovneft for energy efficiency investments. Through the big 4 or 5 Slovak banks, we give money for renewables and energy efficiency. So I think that, you see, in this polyhedric, in this multifaceted kind of picture, if we want to address the problems of energy, you have to use a lot of instruments. A lot of instruments at the same time. Financial instruments, technological instruments, policy making, because this is a regulated business, so you have to be in this way. And also, last but not least, vision. And that's what I have to say nowadays, I think. We know more or less where we're going. Obviously, as I said, it's a moving target, so it's in a certain moment, but it may change. So this is what I think we are doing. For example, the winter package. I'm thinking about the Iberian Peninsula that has never been linked. You should know that in the Iberian Peninsula, there are 6 LNG facilities to the rest of Europe. You see, our picture starts being different. And maybe the tradition, and I conclude by saying the traditional way east to west must still be there, because it is a very, very important thing. But also we have to look at the south on one side, on the other. We have to look at LNG, because Technology in LNG is changing very, very much. Nowadays, it's not competitive, but what about 6, 7, 8 years? Last point. 1 week ago, the price of gas in the US was $2.9 per BTU. We pay around 10, so you can see how the world can move.
Thank you. So we concluded the discussion with our panelists. Thank you very much for emphasizing the technology base of the energy development and the energy revolution. I mean, when we talk about there was a lot of investment in gas exploration, that also led to the development of probably an energy device on Earth now, the Tesla battery. It was the investment in technology. So we should probably remember that, especially since our panel and our discussion is about how to bring together the energy security and competitiveness. So we should look at these two sides. Thank you also for bringing the energy intensity and energy efficiency into the picture. I was a bit surprised, pleasantly surprised, but there is the public is voting now on. One of the votes suggesting solution, but let's see the quick comment. Which of the following is the most important for the EU energy security? That's usually the underdog of the political conversations, probably because everybody, and the second comes gas import diversification, renewables is at 13% only, and probably very disappointing for some people, EU gas exploration is 0. So I'm sure I'm sure you can still have an opportunity to change the results of this poll, but that's an interesting look. And should the energy union include countries that are not members of the EU? 77% say yes. I mean, this is a very interesting issue, and I have to say, when we discuss the achievements and the development of the energy union and what the energy union is, I mean, what the energy union and Mr. Šefčovič did with the development and building the CSEC group is quite extraordinary in a way, and it does include non-EU member states. Probably just a very quick question to Mr. Šefčovič. How do you see the inclusion of non-EU member states in the energy union?
I said it several times, and I think I will be very happy to repeat it here, that it's quite clear that the energy union shouldn't stop at the EU borders, because it's quite clear that in electricity, or be it, as it was very rightly highlighted, in energy efficiency, we clearly, if you look at renewables, I think their primary nature is that they really do not recognize the territorial border. I mean, sometimes you have more sun, sometimes you have more wind. You need to cooperate on a regional basis. But I agree with the poll that for sure that they will be competitive, and for sure energy efficiency will play increasingly bigger role. We tend to forget the fact that, for example, 1%, we can import by 2.6% less of gas. I think so. It's clearly, I would say, factor in making the calculations how much gas we would need in the future. And that was one of the reasons, and I'm very happy that also Slovak Investment Holding decided to have energy efficiency as one of the top priorities, because part of that summer package for the next year, we want to introduce this new instrument, the smart financing for smart building tool, by which we would like to kind of encourage to start this energy efficiency wave across Europe. Because there is a lot to gain. It's a lot to gain in the industry. And I think here we have to be really proud, because our European industry is twice as energy efficient as the American one, but we still know there is a lot of opportunity to improve our energy efficiency, but especially in our buildings, in our residential areas. These are projects which are supported by the people. These are the projects which are very much supported by the local authorities, by the mayors. They need advice, they need feasibility studies, they need energy audits, and they need financing. And this is something what we need to provide, because I'm sure that this would be the money very well spent, which would bring multiple positive results, energy efficiency being the first, but of course clean environment, lower energy bills for the customers. And just one comparison for Ukraine, how energy efficiency is important. We just made our calculations and our modeling, and we just concluded that if the Ukraine would be as energy efficient as the EU average country, so they would save that much energy in 1 year as it is consumed by such a country like Spain. So Ukraine would be energy exporter and not importer. So that's the potential which is still there. These are the projects which we support jointly with international financial institutions. And I really would like to thank Ricardo and his bank for being the first, for putting the first founding stone into this construction of the financing instruments for these heating seasons, because when we started the discussion on this issue in the early June, we realized that it's very challenging, that we have international institutions which, because of good reasons, been quite worried to go into that project. But we managed to do it, we did it together, and thanks to the EBRD as a pioneer in this respect, we managed to pull other international financial institutions to work on this project together, and I think we ended up with a very positive results. So these are just a couple of reactions, how the renewables, energy efficiency, and good cooperation and well-targeted financial support can really bring the multiple results in increasing energy security and doing it in, I would say, this environmentally very friendly, energy efficient way.
Thank you. We have 10 minutes for a few questions from the audience. You're first, and I'll collect 2-3 questions, and then, yes, please.
Thank you very much, Igor Kosier. First of all, I would like to mention that everybody, I believe, understands that I would like congratulate and thank Mr. Šefčovič, Vice President of the European Commission, for creating this first network of the first successes, potentially creating probably much higher and stronger success of this very interesting, very comprehensive, but very important, I believe, project. After successful visit of French President François Hollande in Beijing, the first assessment were really very positive vis-à-vis this future Paris summit. I would like to kindly ask you, is it possible to present us the most important contribution of European Union to the final success of Paris COP summit? And secondly, if it's possible to assess a little bit nowadays the level of cooperation with China in energy sector. Thank you.
Thank you. And you, please, here.
Thank you. Franciszek Doktor, Via Europa. I very much agree with the idea of putting energy efficiency and energy union in one package, and I agree with the points that this is the way to reconcile the ambitions in these areas. And you mentioned the importance of the activities regarding the buildings. I have two very down-to-earth questions related to that. First, how you plan to motivate energy companies from oligopolies down to the district heating companies to be more involved in the energy efficiency market and to increase their energy efficiency sales at the expense of their energy sales? The second, part of the industry is arguing that by 2030 they will be able to increase efficiency of the simulated photosynthesis to the level that allows commercialization. Do you see real capacity in simulated photosynthesis for contributing to achieving our targets in climate change?
Thank you. And the third question there at the back, and then we'll ask our panelists to answer.
Hi, everybody. My name is Josef Vadid. I'm energy analyst here in Slovakia. I would like to tackle a bit on Nord Stream because this is very topical issue here in this part of Europe, and everybody was speaking a bit about. I think the problem is that we made a mistake in history in the past, because there is already Nord Stream 1. It's kind of precedent. Nobody, not even European Commission, not German regulator, anytime analyzed its compliance with the third energy package or even second energy package. Why? Maybe because nobody asked. There is a possibility of any member state to ask European Commission to submit this question and to ask why maybe Germany or any other country in which territorial waters Nord Stream 1 is late. So if we want in some way to limit Nord Stream or prevent Nord Stream 2, we have to return to the past and is in compliance with the European energy law. So that's maybe even a question for, and maybe question to Mr. Šefčovič, why Commission haven't started yet this kind of analysis.
Question whether Nord Stream 1 is in compliance with EU law. So, so that we can finish on a more optimistic note after that. Not surprisingly, Mr. Toplany would like to.
Yeah. You a little bit forgot the first crisis, or not first, the first big crisis in 2009, in which I took part as a President of European Council, had to solve this crisis. What's the main reason of this crisis? The main reason was big resistance of Sweden, Poland and Baltic countries against Nord Stream 1. What was the result of this crisis? Nord Stream 1 was during 2 years immediately built up. Of course it is not in compliance with European rules. Of course. It is a destruction of trust to rules and so on, and we have to come back to basic rules and to fulfill and to keep these rules. It's only way how to keep, and we discuss all these days here in TATRA summit about how to keep European Union, how to survive, how to solve many challenges and problems. We have to keep rules. And I am afraid that Nord Stream 2 will have some similar scenario. Maybe not so strong as in 2009, when I had to travel to Kyiv, Moscow and Kyiv repeatedly and to arrange some basic agreement between the countries. We have to understand the history and understand ambitions of superpower and empires and the big guys within the global politics. It's enough to study Russia energy strategy from 2003, upgraded in 2009, when it's all written. We have to control all routes, all pipelines going to Europe. We have to control sources of oil in Central Asia because we don't have in the European part of Russia some adequate sources. We have to diversify our export to the south. And all these documents are open. And we have to understand the effort of Russia. But I understand this effort. Yeah? To control all routes, to control capacity, to control price, and to keep this sphere of influence, this buffer zone around Russia under some dependency. It's a geopolitical problem. We discussed about some not so important topics, but it is very important to understand. And one remark only more to this growing of renewable sources. I am not against. Not against, but two figures. Electricity in the spot market, what's done by variable cost, is now 29.65 euros. The concrete price on bill for households is more than 100 euros. What's the gap? What's the difference between these prices? It is subsidies to green energy, of course. The fight against global warming and climate changes will be realized only when German public will have willingness to pay these bills. This day, when the willingness will be reduced, this war will be finished. It's my prediction. And these figures are big fear, big warn for everybody, because somebody has to pay this gap. It's 29 euros. It is impossible to build up any conventional source. Any conventional source. We are discussing about allowances. It's totally stupid procedure and rule, because it's so simple solution. Carbon tax. Nobody is willing to push through it. Why? What's the interest of these big players and big guys?
Okay. Thank you. Probably this difference between 30 and 100 is not just green tax. I mean, there are quite a lot of other components and various taxes that are included in it. But let's quickly cover the other questions. How to get the energy companies interested in energy efficiency? Who would like to answer? Mr. Hoduk, you were saying very interesting finance innovation. Probably that should go to you.
Well, I think the incentives have to be driven by way then to modernize, and they do have to follow and should follow the overall strategy of the national energy policy as well as the European energy policy. As our production by 40% by 2030 in the European Union in comparison to 1990. It's a goal which was adopted at the EU level, also translated into the national level, being in the presidency of the EU in 2016. We will push for the accomplishment of this goal. And we believe this is good for the people, for the nations, for Europe. So the companies should follow in this direction. Second aspect is the push from people themselves, as was already mentioned. We do want to live in healthy environment, and this is the way how people see it and feel it. And the third element is our financial instruments. As already mentioned, in Slovakia we are building basically a energy efficiency fund, which will be publicly supported, but which will basically the task will be to bring private sector investors to push and finance energy efficiency projects. So we have to identify ways how financial community can support this type of movement. And I think on the European level, but also national level, we still have a task how to structure the regulations in the way that would encourage these companies to move in this direction, so that they also conform to the regulations towards energy efficiency.
The minister was saying, I fully agree. We should be all against about permanent subsidies, but subsidies are just for a period, for a very focused thing. Oh, welcome. I have to say, energy efficient. So if we diverge some of our resources, and I know very well that national budgets, especially in Europe, are very much in a complex situation, but if we diverge from one subsidy to another, I think it's fine if the final objective is good. The important thing is that subsidies cannot be permanent. A subsidy just to maintain an industry or something that doesn't work, it's pure folly. But a subsidy to move from one form of the energy market to another, I think it's welcome, actually.
Well, thank you. And now we have 1 minute to cover China and Paris, which I guess should be enough. Mr. Shevchik, so first, what is the future of the EU energy relations with China on EU level, and what we will bring to Paris?
At first, I think that Europe is bringing the most ambitious contribution to Paris. We made our so-called INDCs, which is the collective contribution of the EU member states, early on, just to lead by examples and motivate other global players to follow our examples. 40% reduction of our greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, 27% of energy production from renewables, 27% for energy efficiency. And on top of it, we also were bringing some of the schemes we developed in Europe. We just reformed our ETS, emission trading system mechanism. We adjusted it for not only for post-2020 period, but also through the market stability reserve, also for the period until 2020. And I have to say that it's very positively viewed also by our Chinese partners. We are helping them with the technical assistance. I was in Quebec, where they have a system which is very, very similar to what we have in Europe, and they are already in a very